So next up, we have a panel that I'm particularly excited about because it is all about women in innovation. I'm going to let all of the panelists introduce themselves to you in a moment and let you know a little bit about their businesses and what they do. But to give you an idea of the calibre of people that we're about to introduce, these women are all recipients of the Women in Innovation Award from Innovate UK and KTN for 2020-2021, which in itself is a pretty good indication of how successful they are in their various fields in innovation. On a personal level, these women have been recommended to me by Sophie Walker of Dsposal, who you will have seen speak previously at our last Elevate exchange with the work that she does in Dsposal. And she's somebody who has always been an incredible inspiration to me. She does amazing things. So if Sophie says these are a group of women that you need to listen to and have got a good story to tell, then we know that they absolutely are. So given that I've set this off by embarrassing Sophie slightly, I am going to go immediately to Sophie to do her own introduction and let you know a little bit about what she does.
Well, thank you, Ilona, and you are too kind as always. So I'm Sophie Walker. I'm the COO and co-founder of Dsposal. We build software to try and demystify the world of waste and empower organisations to make better decisions around their kind of waste and recycling by kind of understanding it more. So the project that I won the Women in Innovation Award for is specifically around basically building on the software that we've got already so that it really meets the needs of complex waste producers like NHS trusts. And we are incredibly lucky to be working with, I always get this wrong, but Manchester University NHS Foundation Trust. It's such a mouthful. But yeah, we're really pleased to be working with them, and they're going to help us develop it and pilot it, and that's super exciting. So yeah, I mean, and in terms of innovation, I think that it's worth saying that the waste sector, waste is something we all create, but very few of us understand, and the waste sector is generally kind of overlooked by software developers and people doing innovative, snazzy things. And so the kind of digitalization we're talking about, in some ways, is super standard in some areas, but is pretty groundbreaking in the waste sector. And I think most people are always horrified and shocked at how basic some of the kind of the infrastructure is in terms of software. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Sophie. And absolutely, it's something that we've touched on over the course of today, is how different innovation looks in different sectors. That's what's groundbreaking for one is business as usual for someone else, and actually bringing together those different industries is sometimes where something quite exciting happens. So if I can come to you next, Anja.
Thank you so much, Ilona. Thank you for having me. So my name is Anja of Enable Manufacturing, and I am one of the co-founders there. And we specialize in the manufacture of metal parts. And just to give it some context, so metal parts in the last decades, they've been manufactured using a very old technology called die casting, where you make a cast and then you cast hot metal in the foundry into it and you make a metal part. But then 3D printing came along and changed the world of manufacturing, because all of a sudden you could make one part or 5, you can change your design immediately. You know, every night you make a new prototype, fantastic. But for metal parts, it hadn't progressed as quickly because there aren't so many metals available for this technology. It's very expensive and it's not very scalable. So our innovation is additive casting, where we combine the two. So we print a mold or a pattern, and then we cast metal in a foundry, and that eliminates tooling costs, but it allows you to make really complex parts and to innovate really, really quickly. And for UK companies, that could mean to have more innovation and to reshore their productions. And the project that we got the award for last year / this year was to have a digital supply chain engine running in the backend, where we can completely track orders from order to invoice throughout this very complex supply chain of digitally making metal parts for UK producing businesses.
Amazing. Thanks ever so much. And as some people watching might be aware, I grew up in Sheffield, so literally like in the steel city, and that whole kind of, you know, metal industry was kind of part of my world. And one of the things that certainly became very apparent to me as I was a bit older and I was out and networking in the city was just how male dominated a lot of that industry was. So particularly exciting to see, not just is it now at the forefront of innovation, but there's women leading that. It's really exciting. I'm sure you're a great role model to a lot of people in that space. If I could come to you next, Samantha.
Yes, hi, I'm Samantha Bunyan, a co-founder of Cecence, and we're a composite manufacturer who specialise in lightweight, sustainable aerospace interiors. And the work that we're doing through this award is to push forward on natural fibre composites and bio-based resins, and to flip a lot of the traditional composite materials such as carbon fibre and epoxy resin systems that aren't particularly good for the environment, and to try and do something that other people might think is pretty radical, but which is to get hemp and recycled carbon fibre as two of the main fibre reinforcements that are used in aero interiors. So seats, panels, plinths. There's a huge range of possibilities. And actually what Anja was saying was key about, as a composite manufacturer, we often use large billets of metal as tooling, into which we hot press the materials. And one of our biggest outlays is typically in that tooling. So automatically you've got a good example of the fact that bringing this group of women together, we're maybe in different industries, but there's an automatic crossover.
Incredible. And it's something that we're going to pick up on a little bit later on this session. Is like just literally that magic of bringing all of you women together. And I think it's really worth noting there, like all of those innovations, that crossover and places is so important. And you've obviously touched on there, like what is undoubtedly the biggest challenge that we're all facing over the next decade is around, you know, climate change, sustainability. So brilliant to see those innovations, not just, you know, how can we be more profitable, how can we do things quicker, but also how can we do the right thing and how can we address some of those global challenges. And so last but not least, Nicola.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm Nicola, I'm co-founder of HappyrHealth, and we are developing digital pain management for young people. So there are about 1 in 4 young people who experience chronic pain, which means that they don't have just one acute pain because they break their leg or they have some other form of pain because of an accident. They have really pain that recurs from time to time and over 3 months. So I myself have one form of chronic pain, which is migraine, and which probably a lot of women, so it's more an issue for women, unfortunately. So probably there are a lot of you listening who also experience that. And what people with chronic pain need is not only medication, but also help in coping with pain, because it's also an emotional and social challenge when you experience pain again and again. And what we are developing is a mobile app in which we combine the gold standard from the medical pain management side, so including techniques from, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy or meditation, relaxation techniques, and then adding to that gamification elements, storytelling elements to help young people to start with that process early on so that the pain doesn't have that much of an impact on them. And with the Women in Innovation Award, we got the support both financially, but also with a group of women, with the advisors and mentors, to build the final version of the app and share it with our communities.
Wonderful. And I always think like it's particularly inspiring where people struggle with something themselves, and instead of just taking that step back and being like, that's really difficult, and you deal with it, to actually find a way that you can help so many other people in that situation. And certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, we are going to feel so much more isolated. So to be able to create something like that app that's going to make such a day-to-day difference to people who are struggling is an absolutely phenomenal achievement. And you touched on it there about some of the other benefits of winning the award. So I'm going to stay with you, Nicola. What some people might not be aware, and I wasn't aware of until we kind of had a few conversations around it, is that when you win this award, it's not just this beautiful shiny award that recognises your your achievements, that it comes with some form of package of support, and that includes this kind of boot camp series to help raise all kinds of different knowledge and expertise. And could you let us know what you found most useful from doing that boot camp?
Yes, I would actually say there were different sessions on personal growth, or also learning more about yourself as an entrepreneur. I think that's probably because I come from the sector where it's about emotional well-being, that I also see it on myself and how challenging entrepreneurship is for yourself. So understanding your strength, your weaknesses, when you yourself need a break, or when you need support as the founder of a business and not always providing support to other employees or trying to make it right for everybody else. So I think there were a lot of sessions that made me think personally about my role as a female founder, as an entrepreneur, but also as an individual who, in my case, experiences the same problem as our users, as our community. So I think that was one of the major points for me, because that's something we often overlook while we look at expertise in many different fields, but not looking at what expertise lies within us.
Absolutely. And I think we've seen, haven't we, that like hustle hard mentality so many times, and this vision of what an entrepreneur should be. And Kate and I set up Elevate 10 months ago now, and the story that we were told over and over again was, this is how many hours you'll be working, this is what your lives will look like. And we were just like, absolutely not. That is not the business that we want to run. Yes. I don't want to be unhappy and working 12 hours a day like that. That's not why I'm doing this. So wonderful to see that kind of message coming through and giving you that kind of authority to be like, right now, actually, this is a way of being a really good leader, and actually how important it is to recognize that and give yourself the same advice that you would give to the people using your products.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Samantha, what did you take away from the boot camps?
The fact that I wasn't alone in seeing that there was quite a lot of bias and prejudice. I think when you're busily trying to get a product out of the door, you're very focused on the product itself, and you focus on the job in hand, and actually being given the sort of luxury. It was almost like a weird spa weekend in a way, or it was midweek, where you could actually take time to think about yourself and how you fit into that program. Just as you were saying, you were told that, you're going to be no sleep, you're going to be exhausted, it's going to wear you down. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that advice may not have been necessarily from other females. No. And that's very much what the kind of the conversations around our company when we started was like. And actually, Sophie and I were both talking earlier. There was a brilliant woman called Rowena Ironside who has a company called Women on Boards. And it's critical that at an early level, you involve yourself in those high-level exec meetings. And I've spent a lot of my time working on the shop floor with the team, focusing on design and innovation. And actually, it is as important, if not more important, to make sure that you have the right ingredients and the right sort of balance of experience, and also male and female within a board. Otherwise, the kind of situation that you were talking about earlier is all too prevalent. So I think that those are some of the things that I took away. And also there was a woman there, brilliant innovator, who stood up at an event after a series of guys had stood up and given their fourpenneth or tuppence halfpenny, and that shows my age. And she basically, when she walked on stage, they said, "Oh, brilliant! It's a cup of tea now, is it, love?" And you kind of thought, that's that kind of constant sort of drip negativity does get to you after a while. And I think one of the lovely things about the boot camp was that we were all together, all united, and we could all share those experiences and say, actually, that's not right, and we've all got to get better. And male allies too was one of the things that came up early in the innovation presentation. I think that's as key. It shouldn't be either or some kind of battle. We need to learn from each other's experiences.
Do, and we hear it said a lot, and it doesn't always necessarily play out as well. But like, gender equality is good for everybody. Yeah. It's, this isn't, we're saying, we want more women in leadership roles, we want more women at the table because like that's a nice thing to do. It's like, we know categorically that makes your business more profitable. We also know that that whole alpha male mentality is not good for men either. But to hear stories like that still coming through now is just terrifying. But I say it's that drip feed. It's not necessarily the one instance on its own that's really difficult. It's that constant environment, and brilliant that you've been able to have this group of women together and be inspired by each other, but also share those experiences. Anja, what were the key things that you took away?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Samantha's spa analogy. And for me, it's really an inspirational fuel. So going to these events, for me, is just really good to just see something else, just hear from other people, because it can be a little bit lonely when you're working away by yourself. And I'm really lucky I have a few teammates, but still, we haven't got too many people around us to give us feedback on what we're doing. And you're constantly thinking, is it the same thing? Is it the right thing? What else should I be doing? And it feels good to hear from other people how they meet the challenges they have every day, and how they tackle being an entrepreneur, what Nicola spoke about, how do they protect their sleep and all these kind of things. So for me, it's really nice coming to this environment, hearing the success stories, sharing the struggle, and getting some good tips on how to move forward myself. And in terms of speakers, I really enjoyed Roberta Luca's speech. And she was speaking about being a woman entrepreneur, but she always spoke about, plotting your path. And that's something that Samantha touched on as well, that, you work on your own business and your products and you're trying to get this to market, but you still need to be aware of where is it going to go. And as an entrepreneur, what is my path? Because it's still an evolving path, and you still want to move forward, not just with your own creation, but also with your career as a whole. And that's really good to have that in your mind, that you still have to plan for the future.
Brilliant. And I love that balance there between, this is like my concrete stuff that I need to do, this is how I get my path, this is kind of the tangible stuff that I took away from the speakers. But what really has come through very clearly there is just that importance of having a community, albeit a virtual one at the moment, of knowing that somebody else is going through the same struggles, but also people that you can share those successes with. And I think actually being able to stop and celebrate what you're doing with a group of people in the same industry is probably something that we were missing anyway, and will have missed even more over the last year or so. So coming to you last then, Sophie, what have you taken away from kind of the boot camps and being part of this collective of women?
So yeah, I mean, I think my favorite thing is meeting the other women. Like I love sharing our stories. I love learning from each other, and yeah, like that sort of support network, and that feeling, like you're saying, not feeling alone. Like it's like, oh good, there's other people out here on this stupid branch that I found myself clinging to. and I think that just, I don't know, it's kind of, it's reassuring and nourishing and inspiring, and even when you're sharing like horrible, crappy stories of people having a bad time, it's nice to know that, yeah, that you're not kind of on your own. I think it's so important as well, like that what we've all just been talking about in terms of taking that time out of the kind of day-to-day, just working, like, I always get this wrong around, but working in the business, right? So as in where you're just kind of, you're sorting out sales, or you're doing delivery, or you're looking after staff, or whatever it is, churn, and actually taking that kind of step out and having time to have a bit of perspective and really think about things, and think about yourself in the business, and think about yourself as a leader, and thinking about where you want to go in a kind of big strategic sort of sense, and what that looks like and what's important to you, I think is incredibly important, and is really easy to not do when you're busy with the day-to-day stuff. And so I think just that kind of, yeah, that sense of space and perspective, and being given that permission to kind of spend those couple of days really thinking about those bigger picture things and internal things, it was kind of the most important thing. And yeah, Rowena was amazing. Like I'm really lucky that, so my auntie is a totally amazing, completely inspiring woman, who used to be the director of culture for Manchester, and she's an incredibly accomplished woman who has sat on numerous boards. And so for years, I've just known that's something that you can do and that you should put yourself forward for. And like, I kind of, previous to starting Dsposal, I don't think I ever thought it was something I would do necessarily, because I had an odd other idea about what I was going to get up to. But it's kind of, it's, you know, that I think it shows the importance of role models, and that kind of that, oh right, oh you can do that, right, that's something somebody like me can do. Oh cool, okay. Whereas I think for a lot of people, they, you know, they don't necessarily have that amazing auntie to kind of go, cool, that's what I should be doing. I'm allowed on this table, and I have a voice, and I'm, you know, I'm allowed to show up here. So I think, you know, that it's cool that Rowena's out there kind of promoting that and being that auntie for other people.
Is, and the 5 of you are absolutely like doing that as well. Sorry, 4 of you, I can't counting myself because I'm looking at my little screens across there. The 4 of you are out there being that inspiring auntie for other people, because it is so important to see women out there in leadership roles in industries that we might not expect, because people are always watching. Like, you don't always know that they are, but people are seeing that, and you know, they're learning from that at kind of every age that we see women doing stuff. What I found really, really interesting that all 4 of you mentioned was referring to a boot camp as a luxury of time and space and a spa weekend. How busy do your lives have to be that a boot camp is a relaxing break? And I think that just says so much about the type of people that you are in that constant churn of drive, wanting to do better, wanting to solve problems. And the image that somebody once described to me was that running a business is like reading a book whilst riding a bicycle. And if you just look up even slightly, like everything's going to fall apart, and it can feel like that. So actually sometimes being allowed to get off the bike, stop reading the book and look at, you know, where is the path? Are you still going in the right direction? Who else is around you? Is such an important thing to block in. And it's a really easy thing to say. It's really hard when you know how busy you are and how much stuff is relying on you personally to actually take that step back. So I'm delighted that you've all had that opportunity to take a bit of a step back and have taken so much from it. And I think the way that you speak about it will make a huge difference to entrepreneurs and innovators, male and female, who are in that position of just being constant churn and busy, of how important that rest and change can be. So finally, I'm going to come to the 4 of you to see what you're most excited for next. There is so much energy from all of you about what you're working on and the projects that you're doing, and having now this incredible group of women coming together. So we'd just love to know what it is that is exciting you as we look forward to kind of, you know, the rest of 2021 and, you know, the next decade, really. So if I could come to you first, Nicola.
Yes, I think for us, it's really seeing our community, people we've been working with from the very beginning, using our app. There's one story from a little boy who started, so he's 12 years old, from Germany. He started looking at our prototype with the little English he already knows, because usually he would speak German and we only had an English prototype, and he used the app every single day. And it was just a prototype. It wasn't perfect. It didn't look perfect the way prototypes should be. And already there we saw how much positive energy it gives you as somebody who builds this product if somebody is using it and if it makes an impact. So I think for the rest of the year, we're really looking for the feedback we get from people who use it, how it can help them, how we can help whole families, because we can take some burden off parents. And then hopefully, of course, seeing that also in clinical and medical studies. So we have kind of clear evidence that it helps. But I would say as a first step, this sharing of people who use the app and how it can help them is the best we can hope for.
Amazing. And how wonderful, after all those kind of years and sleepless nights and everything else, to actually now see it as that final product. And do absolutely stay in touch with us, because we would love to see that app in action, and I know that it'll have huge benefit, and we would love to get that story shared out as widely as possible.
We'll definitely
Samantha,
keep
what
you
are
up
you
to date.
Sorry, Nicola, I spoke totally over you there. Samantha, what are you most excited about next?
I think the actual possibility that we can get sustainable materials being specced by airline seat manufacturers, not as some kind of token gesture or a greenwashing marketing campaign, but because that is going to be essential in the drive to becoming carbon neutral. And as we continue to pioneer an electric and hydrogen flight, we've got to make sure that we align the materials that we're using to be able to drive that forward. Because if we don't, then we're going to be using energy efficient, sustainable methods of fuel, and we're going to still be producing toxic materials that will have a devastating effect on the environment. So we're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so my hope, my desire is that my company, amidst many others who are also doing amazing innovation work in new materials, are able to play their part with an actual product rather than an idea or concept that simply looks cool, but actually exists.
That's such an important part of the puzzle there, isn't it? Like you say, we can move things around in a really fuel efficient way, but if what we're moving is toxic and dangerous, it's not the right thing to be doing. And I think what you alluded to there is how many companies we need in this space to have any chance of getting to where we need to get to in the next decade. It's going to take an enormous amount of time, effort, innovation and everything. And hopefully, you know, people watching this are inspired by how far you've managed to get with this and might be thinking, here's the bit that I can do and bring more pieces to that puzzle. Anja, what are you most excited about?
I'm very excited about, I must say, our business and moving forward into the next year, because, and I don't know how Sam felt that over the last year, but we started our business in 2019, and then we had a pandemic in 2020, and a lot of manufacturing simply kind of ground to a halt. There was no prototyping, and there were very few new product development projects. And we feel very lucky that we still got our business off the ground and we still kept going. We found these opportunities, but we really hope and feel that this year we are on the change, and innovation is going to come back to the companies and new products are going to get developed. And in that same sense, I feel similar to Samantha, that I'm just so hopeful that people will look at manufacturing also a different way, you know, trying to manufacture products more locally, and our technology can help, using the extensive local UK foundry network to making metal parts at home, not shipping parts halfway around the world and polluting, you know, the atmosphere, and just getting this vibe, like everybody's so aware of the environment, and actually seeing companies taking the real steps towards being more carbon neutral or emission neutral, and actually changing the business model to improve the well-being and protect wildlife and move forward in a better way.
Fantastic. And there is, as you say, so much appetite now for that balance of kind of profits and purpose. And if you've been able to achieve this in a pandemic, I think we can all agree some pretty exciting things are going to be coming as the world reopens, and we're able to get back to focusing on all of those things that have just been on hold for the last year or so. So definitely going to be watching you for some exciting developments. Last but not least, Sophie, what are we most excited about?
I'm always excited, but I think so. There's a few things. So one, I think the fact that like this conversation is talking so much about, you know, that kind of the need for systems thinking, that like don't just solve this problem and make another problem worse. And so the fact that that's becoming more widespread, I think is incredibly exciting, because I think it means we're going to really solve problems. I think the fact that it seems like we're moving towards a thing where business is more about collaboration and more about working together to kind of actually tackle these things, rather than something where it's that sort of horrible kind of apprentice Dragon's Den type backstabbing sort of thing, which is just hideous. And I think that's really exciting. And, you know, people really trying to do things that actually solve problems. And for us, I think we've got a product launching like in this, probably at the end of this month, early July, because things are always delayed, which is for the waste industry. And our user testing so far, like Nicola was talking about, getting people using it and being really excited about it, and our user testing so far has been mind-blowingly good. Like people have been so thrilled with it, which is just so, I don't know, invigorating, you know, when you see all your hard work and you see people using it and going, oh, that's so good, I love that. So I can't take any credit for it. I've hardly been involved in it at all, but it's just really, really, it's exciting that that's going to be out there. And then the project with the NHS, I think we're going to be able to do exactly that same feeling, but for people like NHS Trust, which is just, yeah, it's amazing. So I
couldn't have asked for any more excitement than that. That was amazing. So much positivity coming through there. And as much as you say you can't take credit, I don't think anyone here believes that. We know how hard you work on all areas of what happens there. And absolutely, you need that sense of invigoration of seeing people use those products when they come out. You know, that is essentially where the payoff comes. The bit that I really wanted to highlight from what you've said there, Sophie, is innovation quite rightly gets a bit of a bad name at the moment as being a buzzword, that, you know, everybody wants to be innovative, everybody's got an innovation department and all the rest of it. And actually, we don't need to say innovation, it's just problem solving. And the problems that we've got at the moment are some pretty chunky problems to look at, and we can only do that by collaborating, bringing people from all different backgrounds and sectors together. And I'm exactly the same as you, that I'm seeing that change in the business community of people being like, right, we've got a massive problem. How can we get together, solve this problem? There's enough space for us able to work in here. There is no shortage of problems for us all to be going at. There's no shortage of people with great solutions. So we can just make that work. And it's not about lots of individual businesses just protecting their profits and putting a shiny kind of innovation sticker on it when it suits. And so finally, just want to give all of you a massive thanks for giving up your time to come and speak with us today. I've learned loads from listening to you. I'm really inspired and really excited for what the future is going to hold. So I hope you will all come back and join us in the not too distant future, and we can get a bit of an update on where all these amazing innovations are and see what little nuggets of magic are coming out of bringing your group together. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Thank you
for having us.